Yondo music.
Ooh, we back with another episode. This mic is way too close to me. Way too close to me. Oh, we back with another episode, y'all. Man, I know I'm trying as hard as I can to get them uploaded and done by Fridays, man. But it'd be hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. Beforehand, I was just kind of winging it, but I'm trying to put a little bit more effort and a little bit more conscious thought into every episode that I do, right? And I'll say starting next week, I'm gonna just ask around, see who wants to be a part of this grand experience, because I do like having people on here and do like the debate aspect, if that makes sense. Just kind of like the debate aspect on that. So I'll be asking around later on this week. So if anybody wants to be a part of this show, just hit me up, man. Just realistically, just hit me up, bro. Like, I'm always down for it. But without further ado, let's get to the topic of this video. The topic of discussion now, as you know, is the Democratic Party, or as we know now, to be the Democratic Party, and kind of breaking down the history of them and kind of giving a little bit of pointers on everything, because as far as I've known, up until recently, I want to say like a couple years ago, what I knew about Democrats was a complete lie. I thought they were, for minorities always, and Republicans is just always dicks, but that's not the case. It never has been the case. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the things that I want to cover is in this history of episode. This is not going to really be a long episode, and then one set for this week is not going to be that long, but for next week's episode, I definitely want to have like a roundtable discussion on it. So yeah, hit my line, bro. I'm gonna leave the Discord server in the description. I'm gonna leave everything that you need to know in the description, bro. Yeah, you got me. I got y'all. Yeah, I got me. All right. With that being said, I want to cover up the brief history of the Democratic Party, and later on this week, Friday, we will be covering the also brief history of Republicans. I don't want to get too deep into it. I don't want to get too self-absorbed with it, because I know how people are about politics. So I'm not going to touch bases on it that deeply, to the point where, everything is currently going topsy-turvy. But what I have from you guys is I'm going to be reading, and this is an updated article from history.com. It's updated October 11, 2019. The article was originally posted in April 4th, 2018. Now, this is a reference that I'm going to be using for like the different points. So first thing we're going to talk about is the kind of how the Democratic Party was in the earlier parts of American civilization. Ergo, like when it first started, and I don't think there was many Democrats at that point. I think it was still like a Republican, still a Republic at that point. So it really wasn't like two parties to choose from. If I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong. All right, it may have been two parties the whole time. I don't know. But the main part is I want to discuss both of these parties and in relations to black people. So the first thing we're going to talk about is from the time of its existence all the way up to the New Deal in 1945. So give or take maybe 1780 until 1945. That's the time frame we're going to be talking about with this first point. Second point we're going to be talking about is pretty much everything on down. And then we're going to be going from the New Deal all the way into modern day, the modern day Democratic Party. So, without further, and then along the way, I am going to be making little pit stops and telling like how it affected black people in this day and age, especially in regards to the earlier parts of it. Because as we all know, black people were not, and in some cases were killed over the right to vote. So without further ado, ladies, gentlemen, and whoever wants to jump in the chat and jump in and have a decent conversation with your boy, let's begin. Starters, right? So starters, I'm sounding like a hood rat. The Democratic Party is one of two major political parties in the United States and the nation's oldest existing political party. See, I was a little bit wrong with that one. After the Civil War, the party dominated the South due to its opposition to civil and political rights for African Americans. After a major shift in the 20th century, today's Democrats are known for the association with a strong federal government and the support of minority and women's rights, environmental protection, and progressive reforms. So just reading that first one, right? So just reading that first sentence, you now understand where everything comes from, right? At one point, Democrats were not for women's rights or even African American rights. Well, at that point, newly formed African American rights. And that's generally because they saw so much of a profit on it. You know what I'm saying? Because, as we all know, one of the biggest trades that ever happened in American history is the slave trade, or in the history of the world is the slave trade. It was very vastly popular. It was very vast and plentiful with the money that was being generated from it. So here we have this party, this political party, who openly, when I say openly, they openly oppose the civil and political rights for African Americans, even after the Emancipation Proclamation, which, in fact, I will talk on a later episode, didn't really free the slaves as we thought it would. It just kind of transferred power, but we'll talk about that in another segment. But even after that, it took them like into the 20th century. Now, keep in mind, that is still late to early 19th century. Democrats didn't really get on board with African American minorities or women's rights, I want to say, until late 20th century, early 20th century, if that. And that's really, really sad, because we, again, from everything that kind of goes into everything, we are the main target for the voting, for the votes for Democrats, right? Yet they have pretty much sunken their history, that bigoted, racist, disgusting history, into the ground so that we would vote for them. They put people in power. They put people in political powers on the Democratic front just as like a front. It's nothing more. It's just a front. It's like avert your eyes from the fact that we notoriously at one point did not give a fuck about African American voting rights or political rights or civil rights, or minorities or women. Let's just forget about all that. Let's just forget about that and just keep moving forward. Now, with that being said, it's understandable because people can't change and they want to bury the past as much as possible. But you can't really bury the past and then expect everybody to forget it. You just can't. I'm sorry. It's just something you can't do. So when you, again, have this instance where the black vote is being catered to, right? And they're trying to cater the black vote because they know the Democrats. As black folks, we know Democrats good guys, Republicans bad guys. It's like I'm gonna say the statement for the end of the video. It's just really crazy because at this time of its initial creation, is slavery still going on, right? It was such a big thing in the South because it made so much money, but I digress. That's just how it is. We just, as black people, we get played second fiddle. It's not like we're helpless or anything. People just see us as cash cows, I guess. I don't know. Profit off the struggles, man. Profit off the struggles. Anyway, so through the United States Constitution, though the United States Constitution doesn't mention political parties, factions soon developed among the new nation's founding fathers. The Federalists, including Washington, Adams, and Hamilton, favored a strong central government and a national banking system masterminded by Hamilton. But this is where the buts come in. But in 1792, supporters of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who favored decentralized limited government, formed an opposition faction that would become known as the Democratic Republic. So, Republicans. So, at one point, Democrats and Republicans were actually a part of the same party. This was just because people at one point wanted it to be almost like a dictatorship or even like a monarchy, but without the extra rules, right? Because in the monarchy, you have one central person that you have to listen to, ergo parliament or a king or a queen or somebody like that. You have to listen to and obey their laws, and the banking goes typically through them, if I'm not mistaken, or most of the money goes to them, or however that does happen. But here you have in 1792, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison they didn't want that. They didn't want to have a repeat of what caused the 13 colonies to separate from England in the first place. Now, you may be thinking, how does it have to do with black people? Just wait, I'm getting to it. As this keeps going, despite Washington's warning against the dangers of political parties in his famous farewell address, the power struggle between Federalists and the Democratic Republican Party dominated the early government, with Jefferson and his supporters emerging largely triumphant after 1800. Lost ground, they basically lost ground, the Federalists anyway, and was dissolved after the War of 1812. So, let's get into the Jacksonian Democrats. Now, this is a highly controversial presidential election in 1824. Four Democratic Republican candidates ran against each other, though Andrew Jackson won the popular vote, 99 electoral votes. The lack of electoral majority threw the election to the House of Representatives, which ended up giving the victory to John Quincy Adams. Yeah, it really doesn't matter at that point. Just wanted to share that with you. Just a little tidbit of history. So when you go back to whoever you listen to, you go back, you tell like anybody you know. Anywho, but now this is where it really gets into it. This is where you start to really think deeply into it. In the 1850s, the debate over whether slavery should be extended into new Western territories split those political coalitions. Southern Democrats favored slavery in all territories, while their northern counterparts thought each territory should decide for itself via popular referendum. At this party's national convention in 1860, Southern Democrats nominated John C. Breckinridge, while Northern Democrats, backed Stephen Douglas. The split helped Abraham Lincoln become the newly formed Republican Party. The victory in 1912, he won only 40% of the popular vote, blah, blah, blah. The Union victory over the Civil War left Republicans in control of Congress, where they would dominate for the rest of the 19th century. During the Reconstruction era, the Democratic Party solidified its hold on the South, as many white Southerners opposed the Republicans' measures protecting civil and voting rights for African Americans. And there it is, my people. There it is. Like that's really all you have to get into it. That's really the whole thing about it. At one point, and again, things can change. People can change. There's a lot of things that could go through that. But the whole basis of it was the Democratic Party as a whole originated as I think it was a bipartisan party to oppose Federalists, because they didn't want, a similar situation to happen with King George and all that crazy stuff. So what they did was they reformed this other party. That party won. Federalist was dissolved. Later on down the line, the party just seemed to split up. So what we had was the Northern Republicans at this point, because not everybody in the North, or not everybody in the North and the South were just kind of split like that. So when the Republican Party came about, they were, I do believe, primarily in the North. There was some deviating in the South and all that, but the main focus of it was the Democrats in the South did not want blacks to have voting rights, right? Because I feel like in their mind they thought that these were enslaved people who don't even know practically who they are or what they are doing here other than being a slave. So with that in mind, they just didn't want them to have a right to vote over the common white man, I guess. Whatever the reason, they just did not support black people. But all these years later, they're clamoring for our votes. They struggle for it. They put in the rappers and the athletes and the singers and this overwhelming and abundant amount of people just to get people on board. Just get people of color on board with the idea of having, of us having a party that backs us. I don't know. Still don't believe it. I feel like in any way, I'm going to kind of speak on some on my behalf. I feel like if anything, right, Republicans and Democrats are one and the same, except one is like very sneaky and more subtle, being the Democrats, and Republicans are just more blunt and upfront. So that's just how it is. Anywho, during the Gilded Age, while the Democratic Party strongly identified with rule, architecturism, and conservative values, but the Progressive Age, which spanned the turn of the century, the Democrats saw a split between the conservative and more progressive members. As the Democratic nominees for presidents, Willie Jennings Bryan advocated to expand roles of government to ensuring social justice. So, give or take, and this is where, into the 20th century comes in at, he kind of started a movement at that point. He wanted justice for all, and he wanted just kind of like, I don't know, he just wanted everybody to be treated equally. He wanted a just system. He wanted it how it was intended and not how it was written up on paper. So, I don't know. I'm not really going to go too much into that. So, I'm kind of skipping around with the article just because most of it doesn't pertain to black people. It's just a general history. A general history. Oh, what does it explain? Democracy or a Democratic Party? I would make a full-length video on it, and I would go in depth with it. This is just kind of how black people view Democrats, almost, and kind of giving a quick history of how black people were saw by many African Americans were saw by Democrats. So now we're entering the civil rights era, right? And Dwight Eisenhower was a Republican, right? Signed the civil rights legislation and sent federal troops to integrate the Little Rock High School. It was Lyndon B. Johnson, a Democrat from Texas, who would eventually sign the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Upon signing the former bill, Johnson reportedly told his aide, Bill Moyers, that I think that we just delivered the South to the Republican Party for a long time to come. Interesting. So, over the course of the late 1960s and 70s, more and more white Southerners voted Republican, driven not only by the issue of race, but also by white evangelical Christian oppositions to abortion and other cultural war issues. That's where it lies, people. That's where it lies. You just can't have people. You just think you can't have people telling you what it is, because Democrats, for the majority of the time of its existence, has never been for black people. And then all of a sudden, Lyndon B. Johnson takes it upon himself to just go for it, because this was a major issue. If you don't know, Little Rock, Arkansas, and if it hasn't been beating your head since high school anyway, Little Rock, Arkansas was one of the first integrated schools in the 1960s. This faced a lot of backlash because at this point everything was segregated. It was a Supreme Court ruling that said separate but equal is constitutional and all that other things, and I just never would understand that. But upon doing that, you then, at that point, then see a shift, right? Because now Republicans who have been more, at this point, lenient and more reformative for the most part of the 19th and 18th century, now start to shift towards being more conservative and Christian versus the Democratic Party, who pretty much just hit a flip-flop. So if you really want me to be honest, and from what I got from that sentence is Lyndon B. Johnson did it just to get on black people's good sides. It's my personal opinion. Everybody has one, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. Who knows? Who knows? But intentionally, I think he did that just to push Republicans onto like the southern border, because they knew that it would be more of an interesting fight. I don't know. Either way, it still stands. Democrats cater towards the black vote. But and just answer this question. Just think about this. Why? Why would a party who was hell bent on not even remotely thinking of anything, any rights given or held by African American people, just turn into this group that's wanting and clamoring for our vote, wanting and clamoring for the media attention, for the recognition, for the all around factor of like, oh, we like this. I'll tell you why. It's because the black vote at one point was seen as the most popular thing ever, right? Again, let's just scoot on back to the 3/5 compromise under the Articles of Confederations. If I'm not mistaken, it basically said for every 5 white people, or for every, not for every 5 white people, for every 3 slaves was like equivalent to like 5 people, or something around that or I forgot what it was. 3/5 compromise. I don't know. I vaguely remember it. Anyway, ever since then, this has been kind of something that they clamored for, because what they saw was a group of people who were taken from their homes, who were taken from where they originated from, who didn't know who they were, and now they were, as you've seen, easy to manipulate, easy to take hold of. Google is so weird. Anyway, easy to take control of, easy to manipulate into doing what they wanted, and that's all it was. For me personally, I don't think Democrats actually care about African Americans. They just want what they want. They want the power, they want the money, they want the respect, and they want that all. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how it is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They clamor for our attention, like everybody else does, because they want something from us. They want that influence. That's why Democrats go out and they pay millions upon billions of dollars to advertise towards black people, because second to anybody in the polls for the past 5 years have been black people. Everybody else doesn't vote because they just don't want to. They don't think that they should vote because they're not into American politics or what have you. But black people still hold the second highest percentage of voting for the past 5 years. So you don't think they see that? You don't think that they see that something's working in their favor, even though nothing's changing in ours? We get a bunch of new laws and statutes and stuff like that, and none of it actually helps us. they legalize marijuana for some strange reason and they start profiting off it. But you know, what happens to all the people that's in jail? Totally unrelated, but hey, needed to be said. What happens then? Because you're not gonna let them out. Oh no, you're not gonna let them out. But what you will do is just promise that they'll do the best they can just for you to smile and just Uncle Tom it up for them as they sit there and they do you the worst than whoever did Trump's toupee. Just saying, man. I'm just saying it's not okay because we just fall for it. Anyway, fast forward, we're hitting 2008, voting our first black president. He was a Democrat. So Democrats now are leaning towards being more hip, more intuitive, more into social issues of today versus just social issues of yesteryear, which is, to me, a good thing, somewhat. But you're still clamoring for votes, especially from the black community. You try to be so hip, you try to be so, it doesn't work for me. And I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work for me. So, in a nutshell, the final verdict of it is Democrats are just as corrupt as Republicans. It's both parties are just obviously heinous. Obviously heinous that they clamor towards their respective groups because they know how to manipulate them. And that's just an easy thing to know as people. Is if you easily manipulate it, they will take advantage of it. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. It's just how it is. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna head on out. My throat is actually killing me now. So if you know what the deal is, man, I ain't about to say this every video. Y'all know what to do, man. Like, watch it, comment, subscribe, share it. I'll share it on Facebook for you, man. You know, just show me some love, bro. You know, I love it. I love the growth that's happened. It's slow, but it's getting there. And I know a lot of people do enjoy my talks, so thank you. If you enjoy this, please thank you. Just know that means a lot more to me than anything. All right. So, without further ado, I'm going to be doing a lot more things. I'm going to link my other channel in the description because I'm going to be posting there too. So, and I'll be on that one. It's called Weave Sleeve Nation. I'm going to leave a little bit of stuff on there. We're going to be talking about a few different things on that channel in the coming weeks as well in regards to a lot of nerdy things, like comic books, video games, and a whole lot of different things, y'all. We got this, man. We got this. I love y'all. Appreciate all the love and support. I appreciate all the love and support. Man, peace, love, chicken grease, and good vibes and cheese fries. Peace.